Hello everybody. I'm going to show you a little bit more on my solar system, a little bit more about programming. This will cover most of MPP, blah, blah, blah. This will cover most of MPP Solar's units and a few other brands too that use the same firmware, same menus and all. And I'll give you a little rundown here. Hope it's something that you can kind of follow along. If you can't, maybe it'll get your brain working and you can kind of catch up a little bit over time and say, oh, now I know what he was talking about later a date or something. It might strike you. So let me give you a scenario. So here we are today, and it's been very rainy, cloudy, and we didn't produce a whole lot of solar as we normally do. And we have guests here. So now the solar that we produced is still just fine if it's only us and carry our normal household and life and everything going on here. And it's enough that if we turn on our bedroom air conditioner, in the evening time, 7, 8 o'clock, and we run it till about like 6:30 in the morning or so, sometimes 7, and there's plenty of power there to carry for that. But if we have guests here and we're running additional air conditioner, additional refrigerator, all these things, lights and stuff, and it's going to pull the batteries down more during the night. And let's say that now our unit switches the grid, and we're going to come back about the grid thing in just a little bit, but right now we switched the grid. So okay, the batteries hit their low point that I have set. I've told the batteries don't use any more power than that. Switch over to the grid when you get down to that voltage. So now it's switched over to the grid. But let's say now 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the power grid here where we live goes down, which often does. And here we have guests, and the room's cool to start with, but now they're kind of getting hot and sweaty, and they really don't have fans and stuff and all that. And we don't want that. We want to be comfortable. We want to have a good experience. So what do we do about it? Well, with the amount of batteries I have right now, which is 20 kW in battery, and that sounds like a lot, but it's not. And I'm sure there's a little bit of the life of that battery also that is weakens down over time and all. And I'm not taking it to the max charge, and I'm not taking it to the minimum discharge. So maybe I'm only using 80% of the range, not 100% of the range. So we have that to factor in too. I could have definitely went with a larger battery bank, even 2 more 5 kW batteries, which is the most that this brand Felicity recommended to put into a series. That would have been great. I should have put 6 instead of 4. I should have went with 30 kW instead of 20 kW. But hindsight's 20/20, and I don't want to add them now because these are already aged batteries. So now let's digress back. That's kind of a little sidetracking right there about battery storage. So what do we do with what we have? This is what we have, and what do we do with it? We got 11,000 watt inverter. It can have 11,000 watts of solar come into it, and we got 20 kW in batteries. But we need extra power for the guests. So here's what I do. So here we are in evening time. It's not quite dark outside yet, but it's getting close. And here we are. And so if you want to know what some of these are, that one flashing right there, that means solar. And see, it just disappeared. It's like if it's getting some solar in from the panels, that'll be lit up. It's barely catching anything right now. It's saying, man, there's just barely anything coming in. And so once it sees there's nothing coming in anymore from the solar, it'll try to pick up and charge just a little bit off of the grid. Charge off the grid, not output to the grid. So it's in a transition time here right now. So that's what that means. Now here we go. I'm going to go into the menu. So I'm going to hold down the fault button here. Just keep holding it. And here we are now. We're flashing 01. Solar battery utility. Utility is grid. Right there. Solar battery utility. That's my normal if it's only us here. Oh, let me go back up here. Now we're gonna hit that where it's flashing and go down. Now we got utility solar battery, meaning it's gonna use the grid first, the solar second, and the battery as a backup last option. Or we've got solar, utility, battery. Again, solar first, utility, battery as a backup. And SBU, solar first, this is what we normally have. Battery second, use all the battery it can, and go to the grid as last choice. Okay, so what I want with guest to hear right now is I either want it on USB, meaning use the grid first, solar second, battery last, or I want it on right here. This is the one I want. I'm gonna lock it on it. I want it on solar first, utility second, and save all of my battery as a backup as my last option. If there's no grid coming from the utility, use the battery. So right now all day long, oh, let me change to go back to that menu. It only gives me so much time. So all day long, if it's making enough solar the house can run on it directly, it's going to use solar and charge the batteries. Then it's going to go to grid, and it's going to save the batteries as a backup here. All right, and that's what we're going to let it do right now. So now it got dark enough outside, it switched over to the grid. You see this right here, it says bypass. It means the power from the grid, that one right there, it looks like a little electrical plug, that it is sending the grid right here straight in to power to the house. This is the grid, and it's bypassing and sending power straight on over. And down here, it's showing right here the charging on it. Now see, it's still barely seeing just a little solar outside right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip these panels off so that'll go away. There we go. I actually did it right ahead of me. So now it's saying here that it's taking the grid and it's bypassing, and all the house is being powered off the grid right this minute, not the solar system. And it's taking the AC, and this is the AC DC charger right there, the second one. It's taking the grid, converting it from AC to DC, and putting it into the batteries, and thus charging the batteries. Okay? So here we are. This is the way it would be here for right now. Now it says this bypassed from the grid into the house. The house is the plug. It's taking the AC from the grid and converting it to DC and charging the batteries. And here's the batteries charging. And let's talk about that charging. So we're going to go to number 11 here in the menu if you want to know what some of these are. That is how much I'm letting the solar panels charge the batteries. I'm letting 110 amps come into them. This is called like an appliance mode. Let's go on right down here. Let's get on to the heart of what we're doing. You know, this is going to be the hertz. You know, you can change it to 60 or 50. This is the voltage that you wanted outputting. 230, we can change that and make it a little stronger or a little less. It's got a range. You don't have to put it straight on 230. But here we are. This is utility. This is the charging coming in where it's doing that AC to DC. And right now it's just doing 2 amps. So at 2 amps, you don't see no charging going on right here. It's so weak. A good cell phone charger would do 2 amps. So let's kick it up. Now we can choose 10 amps, 20 amps, 30 amps, 40, 50, in the increments of a 10, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 30, 140, 150. 150 is the max on here. So I don't want to put that much. We're going to move it back. Right now I'm going to go to 30. So I'm going to say, okay, I want a little bit more charge in here. Let's say if the batteries were kind of low going into the night, and I wanted our guests to not ever have an interruption. Well, 2 ain't gonna do it, 10 ain't gonna do it, 20 might not do it. So let's put 30 in for a while. Oh, let me go back in that menu. It times out. Oh, there we go, it's right there. So let's go to 30. And now we're gonna lock it in. We're gonna hit this button here and we locked it in. Now if you'll listen, the inverter is gonna pick up and get louder. There it is, winding up. Because what it's doing is the fans are picking up for more cooling because the AC to DC charger is in effect now. And that means it needs to cool it because it's going to be pumping power into the batteries. So let's look down here at the batteries and you see they're charging now. And keeping it cool while it's pumping in 30 amps of charge from the grid into the batteries. That's what's happening there right now. So they're all here charging across. And these batteries are all talking to each other. They got a BMS, it's like a CAN bus BMS. And so you see they're all interconnected right here. Connected. And they're all talking to each other and knowing how to balance this power between them, going, hey, I got a little bit more than you. Well, let me catch up with you. And they're all talking and keeping the power balanced amongst them. So there we are on that. And so now what I'll do is, it's early evening. I'm not going to bed yet or nothing. I'm gonna go down, do my thing for the evening, and I'm gonna let these build up a little additional power. And then before I go to bed, I'm gonna come back up here. I know it seems like a lot of work, but it's not. And actually you can even remove this display and use an Ethernet cable and even move it. I could put it even downstairs. This can be set up to where you can remove it from here and have it remote somewhere else. I could even have it downstairs near me and say, okay, I'm gonna do this. But before I go to bed, I'm gonna set that back to 2 amps and just have it just barely putting a trickle. Now that's what I'm doing here to conserve power and make sure that our guests never have an interruption of power. I don't have to do this on the days we don't have no guests, or even if it's been super sunny and we go into an evening that the batteries are full, 100% full when the end of the day comes. We still have enough power to carry it all the way through. So I only have to do this if guests are here and we have a cloudy day. Now one more thing. I had a gentleman write in my comments trying to kind of portray or implicate that maybe my system's illegal. And that he's pushing net metering. Well, I'm not doing net metering. Net metering, that is a preference for yourself. So think about this. When we talk to the power company here from net metering, you put them in a lot of control back of the power of your home again. There's a lot of them calling the shots again and getting approved. It's more costly up front. And if you put out more power than you're using and you put it back to the grid, you get, I mean, it's kind of good in a way. You get now a credit on your account, and say at a later date you need to use power back like I'm doing right now, you get paid back for that. Well, for some people that's good, but you got to have more equipment and you got to have the switch that your equipment will sense if the grid goes down and that grid goes off, a tree falls, hits the power line, a bus hits the line and breaks it, or a transformer blows up and a lineman has to come out and they're working on the lines, that you are not pumping power back into that line and they think it's dead and you electrocute somebody. So it has to have this switch that will instantly isolate you away from the grid. Now, some of these hybrid inverters, when they sense there's no grid power, they instantly turn the inverter off. So now it means that you don't have no power. I'm not saying all brands are that way, but most are. Now you don't have no power. Well, what did you install a solar system for and a battery backup. So you would have power regardless, okay? Some people might want it just for the money saving effect, but you're not really going to save money if you're not really using a system to earn that back. So now you're going to be maybe brown out with everybody else. You know, you've put in all this equipment and you've maybe lowered your bill, but now if you have one of those top units, which most of them are out there, that if it don't see the grid, it doesn't make any power, period. It shuts out. It's done until it senses and sees the grid back. But my unit is not a grid tie. And you're probably thinking, wait, you're sitting there showing us the grids on it. You're sitting there saying you're getting power from the grid, but you're saying it's not tied to the grid. It's not a net metering inverter, meaning that it's no different than this cooler plugged in the wall. It's no different. It's only bringing power in from the grid. It has no way to put power back out to the grid, just like this right here, this cooler has no way to put power back out to the grid. It's a one-way only, but it never puts nothing back out. This is called a off-grid inverter. So that's the classification of my inverter. It is off-grid with grid backup, meaning it can only switch over and use the grid, or it can charge my batteries and or both at the same time, but it has no way to backfeed power back to the grid. And because of that, I don't have to do all the stuff with the power company and all that kind of stuff. And how do I know I'm legal? How does Mel know that we're both legal? It's because when we applied for power with the power company and they knew we had a solar system, we had to wait and have an appointment for an electrical engineer. He was a very nice man too, to come out and inspect our system here, inspect all this to make sure that we are not net metering and what we had. And we met all the requirements without having to fill out a bunch of paperwork, that we are in no way putting power back out, and thus we don't have to have any of that type of equipment or stuff. So that'll give you a little idea on that. We are an off-grid system with grid backup, meaning it's no different than plugging in, like say, a refrigerator or a dryer or a fan. It's just like another appliance plugging into the grid. Pretend like it's just a big old battery charger, you know, just a big old battery charger. And that fan's blowing right now, exactly what that is. It's a battery charger. So that'll give you a little bit more understanding on that. So just because you have a certain kind of equipment and that's what's working for you, that's not the kind that we have. There's options out there. And I'm choosing the option that's best for what I want. And I don't want the man in my business. I don't want the power company and the power companies that are tied with the government, all that. I don't want them to have no say-so, no control. And let's say I bank up a bunch of money on there. Let's say, man, there's $2,000, $3,000 or peso or whatever credit out there to the power company, and we're never ever going to use that up. And I say, hey, can you write me a check? Here in the Philippines, they do not write you a check. You do not get paid for that. You can only use it. So then let's say, you know what? Melinda's mom lives over here next door, and man, we've got thousands of pesos of credit on our account. You know, man, maybe we got 40, 50,000 pesos credit or more. And we say, you know, hey, I want to switch some of that over and pay my mother-in-law's electricity bill. No, sir, it can only be used on our account. That credit cannot be moved to anyone else or nothing. We're the only ones that consume it. Now that works for some people. It's not a bad way to do it. But in my instance of I'm the outlaw, I'm the rebel, man. I'm the don't want to deal with the man type person, you know. I want to be independent. Well, I don't want to deal with them and all the rules and the laws and everything for net metering. It works for some people, it's great, but it's just not what I want. Now, I will discuss this. Right now, when we are using power off the grid, we're losing potential money because we are paying for some power that we're consuming each month. And that's money that I could spend on additional batteries that would put us to the capacity that we would not really need to be using nothing for the grid. The grid would be our backup if, say, like some catastrophe happened with our solar system, you know, a big boom from a lightning strike and it finally blew through just right and it blew out some of our equipment, you know, it jumped through all the disconnects and fuses and, you know, everything, you know, it's a catastrophe. And now your unit's down and now you have no solar. Well, here in the Philippines, they don't charge you a great big fee every month just for having a meter. Like back in Texas and the USA, whether we use any electricity or not, we're still going to get a pretty decent sized bill just for having the account. But here not, man. I mean, it can just be down tiny and small. You didn't have no usage, you're not really paying much. So it's a real nice option to always still have the grid. So if your equipment fails, and let's say it's going to take a week or two to get a replacement inverter in or something like that, man, you can just switch right over to the grid and use it. And let me show you how we do that. Right here is how we do that. Here's my main breaker box, if y'all want to see. This is my main box. They were very impressed at my electrical box here in the Philippines. Even that engineer said just most homes here in the Philippines do not have this, and this is exactly the way it's supposed to be. This is Iloilo. This is our power company, Iloilo Main Power. Yeah, right here. And this is solar main power. We're running the house on the solar main power. Okay, and Iloilo's turned off. You see, that's the power company. Now again, you're going to ask, if Iloilo's turned off, the grid is turned off, how is the inverter up there charging off of the grid? Because coming around to the side of that, I have a bypass that says charge batteries from Iloilo. Okay, so this one is bypassing around, just going to charge like it's doing right now from the grid. But if my solar system's down, I need to service it, I need to work on it, and I want to run grid only and completely remove the solar system out of the equation, or it goes out, I simply flip this breaker down, slide this handle over, and flip this breaker up. And now I am no longer in any way using any solar system. I am simply only using Iloilo like any other home, straight up to right up here. So upcoming here in the very near future, I am ordering additional batteries. We're going to be bringing those other 3 guest rooms online, and we've got that cabin down there and all, and that means even more power used, and that would mean more power coming from Iloilo. And every time we pay them a bill, we could have invested in batteries and have more independence. So we're going to invest in the batteries and have more independence. Now I want to show you one more thing. You're saying, well, you're adding more guest rooms, that means you're going to need more power. Well, we have a lot more solar panels up here than 11,000 watts. We don't have them all wired right now. They're up there and we have them, but we don't have them all wired right now because went ahead and bought them and started getting them in place because I knew I'm expanding the system. And there's one more thing. This bottom box right down here, sitting on the floor there, is another one of these 11,000 watt inverters. And you can run these parallel. When that time comes, up here on the wall, I'll simply shift this unit over a little bit, closer over here to my wind generator equipment. We'll talk about that on a different video, a different time. and the second unit will go up here on the wall side by side. You got to leave a little air gap for those filters to breathe, but they'll go up here side by side and they'll get jumped together, and then we'll have a 22,000 watt system capable of 22,000 also of charge coming in from the panels. I've got this other unit, and that's going to put us with the capability of having 22,000 watts coming in solar panels. It's going to have us with the capability of 22,000 watts going out. And let me tell you, this 11,000 watt right now, we can have every single air conditioner on the property on right now. There's 3 guest rooms, that's 3 ACs. We got our bedroom, that's 4. We got our living room, that's 5. We got the kids over here, the room they're staying in, that's 6 ACs. Then all the little refrigerators, so that's 3 guest rooms with refrigerators, the mini fridges, the large fridge, the cooler right here, and a cooler down in my garage. Then we got the the security system running. We got all the Wi-Fi stuff running. We got all the mesh network going everywhere with that. Then you got the big TVs. We got all the TVs in the guest rooms. Smart TVs in there. We've got our big TV in our living room. Sometimes we have a fan blowing in our living room as well. We got all the lighting all over the property and all. And with everything there, the well pump, everything, washing machine going, all of it. We have never maxed out this inverter. And that's pretty amazing, right? So the one main key thing here right now for us is just to increase our battery bank. Just to increase the battery bank. And it'll be a little investment, but at the price the electricity is here in the Philippines, and the fact that we're going to be in the service industry of providing comfort to guests and all, we don't want to be going without power. And net metering is not going to fix that problem for you. It's just not going to do it. Net metering will not give us that power when the grid's down. What good's that going to do? So batteries is going to be the key point to all of it. Have additional batteries. Right this minute, if we had those additional batteries, we would not be doing the little switching around up there on the menus. That would be over with. That would be mute and in our past. So that's the way we're going to be doing it here in the future. I would suggest and be honest with you that if you're looking at building a solar system, be real on how much storage you want. If you really want to be a fully independent off-grid system, don't short yourself on battery storage. I can really tell you that. I really regret not buying 2 more of those batteries even at that time. So that's the story on that. I hope some of this information was good for you and maybe you got something out of it. I know many of you asked before, well, what about your wind generator? What about your wind generator? I didn't want to confuse the topic of bringing that into play. But yes, we do have the wind generator, and during the stormy season like now that there's always storms popping up and the wind blowing, that is power coming in during the night. And if you've seen some of my past videos, we have woke up in the mornings after the wind's been blowing all night and that generator up there putting in power, that we woke up with full battery bank. And that's pretty sweet. But we'll cover all of that in a whole separate video. Everybody, appreciate you watching this. Comment, tell us what you think, and if you got net metering, that's great. I endorse it, but it's not the only way to go. It is a good way. It is a budget way if you don't have the money to buy a whole bunch of batteries. And either way, but it's going to be about what fits your needs. It's not about legalities and the illegalities and all of that. Definitely follow the codes, definitely follow the laws. Everybody, appreciate you. Comment, and say your part. Appreciate you much. Take care.